Okay, focusing didn't work, so we're going to try this again with the autofocus. So the loop comes up through there. You can see the wire. That's actually a pretty good shot. I'm going to take the end of the wire and bring it, I want you to see this. I'm going to bring it back behind where this piece of wire came out, behind it, and back through the loop into the next loop. There, good shot. You can kind of get an idea. I'm going to hold it there so you can look at it. Okay? Pull it through, and then I'm going to pull it through, put the tool in there, and pull. Remember, this is the beginning of the chain. Don't pull too hard. If you pull too hard, you're going to cause all sorts of weird damage to the chain, okay? We just want to get a loop in there, and I know that looks weird. It looks like it's sitting up too high. We're going to fix that when we go around here in a second. So there's the second loop now joined into that first loop, which is right there. First loop, second loop, okay? And we're just going to go around 4 more times to complete this course, or this I shouldn't say course because I called the other things courses, but I hope that makes sense. We're going to go around 5 times because that's through each of the 5 vertical elements. So again, I'm going to come back through, and here's where it gets kind of interesting. You always want to come back through the wire on the same side that you're doing all the other ones. So if your wire that's coming out is in front, and you always go back through behind it, can you see that? Then you want to do that every time. Turn yourself into a machine. Putting the tool back in there, pulling. I'm not pulling real tight right now. And then fold it up. I kind of fold it up to hold it in place. Okay? Looks horrible, I know. Let me get around to the... You guys probably don't want to watch this, but I'm going to do this really quick. I've done this enough where I can do this fairly fast. Okay, so I'm coming out. I'm creating the new loop 4, and I'm back to... I'm back to... Come on, camera. There. Got 4 loops there. The new one, I would continue on with single for a few courses, for a few repetitions. Starting double at this point is kind of dangerous because you don't have enough stability in the chain yet. It's kind of squishy, okay? So I'm going to then, remember what I just said, we're going to come back through the last hoop we came out of, and we're going to go through the topmost loop of the next sequence. And this is where it gets a little complicated sometimes, because sometimes the new loops are up so high that it's hard to get through. Okay, battery died, ruined my chain. Anyway, lots of bad things happened. I can show you what happened to the other chain in a minute, but I went ahead and made a new chain. See if that'll focus. There we go, right there. You can see that I've already gone around twice. I have 2 layers of single loop chain on here. You can kind of see there's a pretty good angle right there where the 3 loops right there line up with one another, and that's kind of what the courses look like. You're going to look at these things as you're weaving them and go, oh, these don't look like they're ever going to look like they do when you see the finished chains. But as you draw these things down through draw plates, and we're going to talk about draw plates when I get to the end of this and how to, I might do an extra video on how to pull these things down using a wooden draw plate. I made my own. I'll talk about that in a separate video, but anyway, they're going to look a lot better once you pull them down, so don't freak out if you think, oh god, these look terrible and I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, so what I thought I'd do is I'd go from, remember, I've gone around twice, and I'm now ready, if you can kind of see right there, I'm now ready to come back in through this loop and go to the next one. But instead of going through the top one here, right back behind where I came out, and going through this loop here, let me get my little weaver, I'm actually going to come through, I have to do this really precisely so you can see it, I'm going to come through there. Can you see that? That's the loop that's underneath this loop. So what I'm basically going to be doing from now on is I'm going to be weaving through the second hole there, the one that's created by the loop before. And once you start doing that, you go through that type of loop through every other one. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to put that down just for a second to show you this. So I'm going to come back in. Remember, you always come back in the loop you came out of. So even though that's a single right there, that's okay. We're going to come out there, but we're going to go through, let's hope this thing stays in focus. We're going to go through this, the one that's the second one, and I'll show you that. Perfect. You can kind of see it there behind my finger. I'm going through the second loop, not the first one. And then from now on, I'm going to go ahead and pull it tight. Going to make a loop just like any other loop. Trying to keep this in focus this time so you can see me doing this. I'm going to lift that up just like I lift all the other ones up. But now I'm coming through that second one. You are probably going to have to take your tool on this first level of this going around and doing double. You're probably going to have to take your tool and grab those loops and give them a pull. Like, see, that one was too low. That one's too low. I'm going to go around and do that. Okay, so now back through the second loop where I came out. I'm trying to do this and not go cross-eyed. Another thing I didn't talk about earlier, I'll get my little pliers here, and you probably should do, I have taken the end of my wire and kind of bent it into a hook. Can you see that? For these chains where you start going over 5 or 6 courses, keeping the wire straight is kind of hard. I mean, it doesn't help you. So I bend that, so then when I come back in through where I came out, and I go into the next one, the wire's curved and it wants to go into that other one. Okay, so there I got that one. I'm going to put my tool, I'll use the same tool. When I was taught how to do this, Susan Wood-Onstead gave us, I didn't mention this earlier, she gave us 2 of these tip sizes. We had one that was this size and we had one that was smaller. The smaller diameter size works really well if you're going to just do single loop chain. It makes the chain a little tighter and it looks a little bit nicer. Since I know I'm going to do double loop, I just use the wider one through the whole thing. I end up not really using this part of the chain down here anyway because I cut it off, and I know you feel like, oh my god, I'm wasting all this. This is maybe $1 worth of material that you can refine. So don't freak out about that, okay? Anyway, so now that I'm doing double, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this until I get to the very end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this piece of wire out, which is about another 6 inches, and then I'm going to show you how to splice on another piece of wire, okay? So I'm going to pause the video here and start again in a second. Okay, what I did, let's see if I can zoom in on this. Come on, camera. So I have double woven that all the way up to a point. Now you can see the courses are starting to get closer and closer together, and that's a good thing. As I weave this, I can start tightening my pull a little bit, and eventually it'll weave kind of consistently all throughout the range. I decided I'm going to finish showing you how to splice, and then at the end of this video I'm going to show you some of the examples of other chains that I have made in here, just to show you kind of what they look like in their different forms. But I've got about an inch of chain, or inch of wire left here, and I wanted to show you that it's going through the second, get my pick again so to point, it's going through, I don't want it to focus on the background, it's going through the second loop there and coming out. Now I don't want to loop it around and go in through this next loop, okay? To splice on a new piece of wire, we're going to make a loop, but instead of bringing that wire back in behind where it went out and going in through this one over here, we're going to go around, make a loop, and come into the middle and straight up. So I'm going to very carefully, this is where pliers come in handy. When you get down to this much wire, you kind of have to use your pliers. See if I can, I'm trying to keep that in focus so you can see it, but my eyes aren't adjusting quickly enough. So I'm coming back in where I came out, but instead of going through the loops, I'm just going to go straight up. Now that's going to get a little twisted. I'm going to stick that in there, and I'm going to grab this with pliers, if I can grab it. I'm going to pull that loop, but I'm pulling the wire straight up. Can you kind of see that? This makes much more sense after you do it once, so don't freak out once you see this. Okay, so now I've got, there's the loop I just created. Looks like a normal loop, and then the wire comes out from there and goes straight up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that the wire that I'm adding is continuing this. So instead of bringing the wire back to there, the one that I should have gone through, which is this one right here, I'm going to bring the new wire in through there. Okay, so let me get some wire and we'll do that. I'm gonna pause it again. All right, got the wire. There's the thing. So coming out right there, there's the wire. The next one is right here behind my pointer finger. So I'm going to bring this wire in through the second loop. Remember, we're doing double woven chain now, so we're not going through single things. I'm going to bring it straight up to where they stick up about the same amount of distance. You just have to hold it there. Get your flat nose pliers and twist. Your twist. Now, remember what I said earlier, if you really don't like the twists, you could theoretically solder these things, but I just twist them. They don't really show up later on, especially if you're using sterling or gold. I'm having a little bit of a problem doing this and focusing on them. Okay, there we go. Now be careful when you're twisting. Oops, it's out of focus. Sorry. Be careful when you're twisting. If you over twist, you can break the wire, which is the big upsetting thing, and you can pull this last loop that you created in too far and that messes everything up. So there's what I got. I'm going to twist it about 5 times. I'm going to take this, and here's where it gets kind of tricky. You don't want to cut too much off, but you want to cut off enough to where it doesn't really show up. I'm going to cut it about in half, okay? So I've got that splice left over. I could probably have made it a little shorter. Just want you to see that. Now, I used to take that splice and take my tool and push it down inside the chain. But I want you to think about these chains and how we draw them through draw plates. When it's time to draw this chain through the draw plate, that's what this part of the chain is for. You grab this part of the chain with your, channel lock pliers, whatever, and you start drawing it down. The way it is right now, that splice is going the correct direction for me to draw this down. It's not going to interfere. If you tuck that thing down the other direction and you try to pull it down, it's going to actually be going through the draw plate the wrong direction. So I just leave the splices sticking straight up. You don't have to do anything any different than that, okay? So we got the splice on there, we're coming out that other thing, and you just go on from there. So the next one is now going to go same thing, and you just keep doing the same thing. I'm going to go back in the second loop over to the next one. Let's see if I can zoom in on that so you can kind of see it. I know it's hard to see. You kind of see there that I'm going. And you just keep going, and this is how you do it, and that's all you have to do. So you just keep weaving now until you get to whatever length you want. Now, length of these things is a little questionable. I usually tell people that, and this is not a good example here, but remember what I said earlier is that 3 feet of wire ends up being about an inch worth of chain. That's probably for a 4-course chain. For a 5-course chain, you're going to get a little bit less. For a 6-course chain, you're going to get even less. So you just have to kind of take that into consideration. If you do a 3 or a 4-course chain, probably a 4-course chain, you probably can weave an entire necklace that's long enough to use with about 30 to 35 feet of wire, okay? That's a guesstimate. I've never really sat down and measured it all, but that's kind of like, 3 feet gives you an inch. That gives you 10 to 11 inches of woven chain. When you pull it down and you draw this chain down, it's going to be about 15 inches. 14 to 15 inches, and then when you add all of your hardware like the end caps and the hooks and all that kind of stuff, it ends up giving you enough. So you kind of have to think about all that while you're weaving this. But anyway, I'm not going to weave the rest of this out. I just wanted you to see what this looks like. This is what the chains look like before they've been pulled down. They look really horrible actually until you start drawing them down. Now really quickly the last video is going to be of me showing you how to pull these down through a draw plate, but really quickly I wanted to show you some more of the chains that I have here. We've already kind of talked about this, but I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way. These are chains that have not been polished. So actually that's pretty good. I have this nice little container that has all my chains and stuff in it, so I'm going to open this and kind of leave it rested. So yes, I have a lot of these things. I'm going to zoom out a little bit too. I have experimented with different kinds of metal. Anyway, I was just going to show you kind of some of the differences between the thicker metal and the thinner metal. I still have some chains that I made, this one and this one. And I think, let me gauge these. I think you can see how much, let's see if I can get them to focus. Yeah, you can see how much bigger these are than the other ones. I think these may be 20 gauge. I said earlier that I don't use 20 gauge anymore. But, yeah, these are 20. So these were the last two, or some of the first ones that I made, actually. They look much different. I'm trying to get them to focus, I apologize. There we go. Can you see how much thicker they are? Those are the 20 gauge chains. This is a 5-course. I think they're both 5 courses. No, this is a 5-course. The top one's a 5-course, and this one's a 4-course. It's just a little bit smaller. It's kind of hard to tell. Then I switched to, I think this is a 22 gauge. Can you see the difference in the pattern? The 22 looks a little bit, I don't know, looks better, I think. And then this is a really long one that I wove that I think is 24 gauge. So you can see the difference there between, I'm going to take one of these away, just so you can see the difference between the 3 sizes. 20 gauge is harder to weave. It makes the loops bigger, so the chain ends up being bigger, okay? So that's a 5-course. This is a 4-course. This one here is a 4-course 22 gauge. And this one is a 6-course, I think that's a 6-course 24 gauge. Let me take these other ones away. This one is, I wove this one incredibly long. It's actually about, it's already been drawn down to the draw plate, and I will make a separate video of that, but this one's already been drawn down, and I think I have about 24 inches, and I did that because then I can make a chain and a bracelet, and they match. If it would focus, so you can see it, there we go. I really like this one. It feels really good in the hand, and it's supple enough to kind of rotate, and I'll show you how to get these back to their kind of fluidity after you weave them, because once you pull them down to the draw plate, they get really stiff, and you can't, and they're not enough to bend like that. But anyway, I've also done some here that are, this is a bronze one. This is Rio's new bronze wire, and I'll probably use this one. Got a little boo-boo right there. I'll probably use this one to show you how to draw it down, because I've drawn this one down like once, but it's still kind of, see how it's not quite as smooth as the other ones? There's still a lot of space inside that one. You can kind of see down inside of it. So I'll use this one and draw it down. I'm going to make a bracelet out of this one, but I'll show you how to draw them down here in a second. But I wanted to get this part of the video done so you could at least see it. And here's another, this is another good example of this is a 20 gauge single loop chain. Looks completely different. It's more knitted looking. I like it for certain things. I think this would make a pretty good bracelet. I could wrap it around and make some kind of woven looking bracelet. Some of these are really old. I make these and I use them, but then I don't always use them. This is another piece that I did, and this is a different chain, but I wanted to show this to show you what you could do. This is a choker I was working on that had inlaid mocha, and it's a nightmare. But this is the foxtail chain that I make out of the fine silver that I briefly talked about at the beginning. That's like a loop and loop type chain made with fine silver, and I have 5 pieces soldered into each side. I love this chain too. I'm going to do a separate video of how to make this chain in a few days, so you'll be able to see how to do that. It's a little more complicated, but it's only complicated because of the way you have to set it up. So anyway, I just wanted to show you some examples of that. If you want to see more of my pieces that I've used it on, I have all of the imagery, or all the pieces that I've made with this are on my Facebook page, and they're all under the goods folder, Goods. So you're more than welcome to go look at that. I'll try to put a link or something in the video if I can do that. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll come back in a minute and I'll give you a short little video in conclusion on how to use the draw plate that I made. Thank you.